This is a Hawk Beacon, or a high-intensity activated crosswalk in Ocean City, New Jersey. I'm sure you can probably tell the main issue with the Hawk Beacon. People seem to ignore it, even when they're given a red light and pedestrians are in the crosswalk. It's sort of an American spin on a British favorite, the Pelican crossing. Now, besides from that just easily witnessed problem, there are many other caveats to this crossing I'd like to discuss. Let's go over there for a pop quiz. Which of the following phases do you think means you can legally cross the intersection? When there are no lights at all, or when there are flashing red lights? If you think the answer is easy, you're probably wrong, but I'll be revealing the answer at the end of the video. It might appear to be an ordinary traffic signal, but it's actually far from it. These things are basically brand new, having only really spread throughout the US in the last 15 years, and a lot of people still don't know about them. But they seek to solve one of the biggest problems currently plaguing American cities: pedestrian accidents.
Pedestrian fatalities have been creeping up in the past decade.
As he tried to cross the street,
Mark was crossing the street.
Killed in a crosswalk.
Killed while crossing the street.
Was crossing the street.
Takes the life of a 4-year-old girl crossing the street.
Killed in the crosswalk.
It's happening way too frequently.
We need you to act now.
In the US, traditional crosswalks don't really protect pedestrians. From personal experience, I can attest that even if you are in the middle of a crosswalk, American drivers will still not stop for you, even though it is legally required they do so. The problem has gotten so bad that some townships, like this one here in Haddon, have installed these little orange see me flags, which allow pedestrians to basically wave down cars as they cross a crosswalk, practically begging drivers, please don't hit me. Just gotta do a bit of this. It feels more like placing a Band-Aid on a burn wound rather than an actual solution. But hey, it's better than nothing, they say. But what if there were a better way? What if America could take the tried and tested crossings of the UK and put their own American spin on it so they're not too inconvenient for drivers? My name is Edinger, and that is exactly what we're going to be discussing today, as on this channel we like to discuss the interesting differences between the US and the UK. And today's a big one, so subscribing as always is appreciated. So first off, where exactly does this traffic signal come from? Rewind, it's the 1990s. It's a good time to stay inside and play the new Donkey Kong 64 or communicate via the World Wide Web. But one person wasn't going to stay inside. No, he was going to travel. To Bristol, England of all places. And that was R.B. Nassy, the transportation administrator for Toucan, Arizona. Upon visiting the city of Bristol and marveling at its many functional Pelican crossings, Nassy wanted the US to have some of its own. For those of you unaware, the UK have many different functional pedestrian crossings, all conveniently named after birds. You know, like a pelican, a puffin, a toucan, a Pegasus. Okay, it's more of a flying horse, but there's also the zebra, which is important for later in the video. But being an American, Nassy couldn't just use the tried and tested Pelican crossing in the UK. No, he felt he needed to make it different to better serve the needs of the American population back home, and also as probably a way to get around the annoying American bureaucracy. But he did still want to keep up with the UK's cute little naming convention after birds, but not some lousy pelican, a bird of prey. So he and his wife devised the name Hawk, the high-intensity activated crosswalk. Ha! I mean, the actual acronym sounds more like something Marth would say as he swings his sword in Smash Bros. He-yak! I'm just surprised they didn't go with something more hardcore, like Eagle. I've come up with some good ideas if they want to rename it. We've got the Enhanced Ambulator Ground Level Encounter, right? I'm throwing this out there. You've also got the Flashing Red Easy Electronic Delayer of Motorists. Freedom! Much better than a Pelican, right? Either way, after a few years of extra planning, they began implementing the Hawk beacons all around Tucson, Arizona, and eventually it found its way into the Federal Highway Code. So now you can find Hawk beacons, or pedestrian hybrid beacons, not only in Arizona, but also in Michigan, California, New Jersey, and more. But how the heck do you use it? Well, let's say you're a pedestrian here in Ocean City. It's just like a normal signaled crossing. You push the button. This tells the drivers that you are wanting to cross. At this point, you wait for the red hand to become a white man. I know, it's not a green man in this country. And then you simply cross. And this man has just run the light right there. And this Corvette decided to go right through the intersection and broke the law. If I was standing there, I would be dead, and that old man would probably get away with it because he's a driver in the US, which is a car-centric country. Insane! He ran a red light when there was a pedestrian in the crosswalk. I just want to say, finding people breaking the law at a hawk crossing is sort of like going to Richmond Park and seeing a deer. The first time you do it, you're like, oh my God, a deer! And then eventually you realize there's deer everywhere. Did he run that? The main issue that arises here is that drivers are given 5 different phases of the light that they're meant to know, and they don't seem to know them. So now it's time to come back to the question originally pitched at the beginning of this video. Which of the 2 signals allows you to legally drive through the crossing? No light at all, or a flashing red light? Well, actually, I tricked you. It's a bit of a trick question because you're actually allowed to drive through both. Albeit, you do have to come to a full stop with a flashing red, but there are even more caveats. There's a couple of glaring issues with the hawk crossing that you'll probably notice as we go through what each of the phases of the crossing means. And in fact, while I was filming this bit, there's actually been so many instances of cars just driving through and pedestrians just crossing at the wrong spot. This is still such a new traffic signal, so a lot of drivers, I'd say most, probably are unaware of how this operates. You would think that a new crossing introduced to the public would be very intuitive, you know, like the common red, yellow, and green framework that everyone already understands. Instead, phase 1, no light means go. If they had just instilled a green light, something that drivers all around the world are very well aware means go, it would make it as intuitive as possible so that drivers understand it naturally. Unlike this, in which, listen, everybody's just been blowing it. The second phase of the hawk crossing occurs after a pedestrian has pushed the button on the crosswalk, signaling their intent to cross. At this point, motorists see a flashing yellow light. My problem with this phase is that a flashing yellow light where I'm from, in South Jersey, usually indicates to just keep going through. It's just telling the driver that you're at an intersection which has a 2-way stop. You don't have to slow down, just be aware that there's people possibly turning out of this intersection. As you know, right on red is a thing here. A lot of times when you have Pennsylvania drivers and people not from New Jersey coming up to an intersection with a flashing yellow light, they think that means slow down or stop, which it does not, and that causes so many accidents. It holds up traffic, it loses the main benefit that the hawk crossing is supposed to have. So after more time passes, the signal enters its third phase, which changes from a blinking yellow light to a solid yellow light, which acts the same as a standard yellow or amber light at a normal stoplight. Drivers should stop if it is safe to do so. Then we enter phase 4 of the signal, 2 solid red lights, which does signal to drivers they need to stop. Though I have seen many drivers ignoring that very clear warning. Oh my God, a cop just went through the red light. Oh my God. And finally, the 5th phase of the hawk beacon shows flashing red lights, telling drivers that are already stopped at the intersection that if the path looks clear, they can proceed. So a flashing red light means go, as long as you don't see any pedestrians. I have a couple problems with that. Vehicles in America are getting bigger and bigger with each coming year, with the top 3 best-selling vehicles being the Ford F-150, the Chevy Silverado, and the Dodge Ram, and each one of these is a pickup truck. Between the years 1990 and 2021, the average weight of a pickup truck sold in America increased by 32%. But it's not just the weight that's been increasing, but also the size of the blind spot in front of the vehicle. It's gotten so bad now that if you are in a pickup truck, you cannot see a line of small children in front of you on the pavement. And there have been far too many tragic stories of people accidentally running over their own children in the driveway because they didn't see them over their hoods of their oversized pickup truck. So I personally don't like the addition of a proceed if it looks clear signal of the hawk beacon, as clearly you won't be able to see everything on the road and it is just too dangerous for pedestrians. But my major problem with this addition to the hawk beacon is that the design language is completely counter to what is already the expected rules of the road. For instance, let's just say we drove up to a railroad crossing and the lights start blinking back and forth red at you. I guess that now means you can stop, and if it seems clear and you don't see a train, just go around the barrier. No, and the same could probably be said about the same blinking red lights on school buses. Hey, if you don't see a kid, why don't you just drive around the bus and know you'll probably hit a child? And this discrepancy of what to do at a hawk beacon when it flashes red at you has caused issues. It kind of makes sense why they implemented it this way though, as the hawk beacon takes something engineered well for pedestrians and then attempts to over-engineer it to make it better for cars. Pedestrian crossings are meant to be primarily focused on, you guessed it, pedestrians and pedestrian safety, as they're clearly the most vulnerable on the road. So in this way, the hawk beacon really is an American twist on a worldwide favorite, sacrificing safety and exchange for a little bit of convenience. But hey, I could just cut 10 seconds off my Wawa run. Hell yeah. I remember one time when I decided to walk from Mimosa Hall at Rowan University, where I was studying, to the Pizza Hut down the road where I worked as a waiter. Well, now it's a place that sells mattresses, so I guess the same thing without the sauce and cheese. But at one point during my 20-minute walk, that's about a mile or 1.6 kilometers, I found myself at this very intersection of Delsea Drive. You see, here's where I learned the hard way that even if you get a green man, or rather walk signal, in terms of the flow of traffic, nothing at all changes. You see, New Jersey is one of the many states that allows right on red, and so even though I had pushed the walk signal and was given a signal to cross, the cars could still continue passing through the crosswalk from both sides, from people deciding to take a right turn. And so, after the first signal passed and I was waiting to be given a chance and was not given one by any car, I waited for the second one and the third one, until eventually I gave up and realized I just had to play chicken at this intersection, which is very, very scary. And in fact, while I was filming this, I just passed by a new introduction to the intersection, a crucifix with little stuffed animals around it, because a 14-year-old child who is an aspiring football player died here a couple years ago when trying to cross the intersection from the GameStop to the Wawa to get a hoagie, something that I've genuinely done before. This is genuinely scary. Also, that's new. Let's do this. Oh God. All right, he's living. He's gonna live today. Okay, these cars are all stopping. He's stopping. We're all fine here. It seems I have survived. Oh God, oh God, oh God, oh God. I'm not doing that again. I was like, should I do it again for when it gets scary? No, I really, no. I'm not doing that again. After just this one time of trying to take a simple 20-minute walk to work, I never did it again because it just wasn't worth the risk. This is why Americans don't walk, because the infrastructure here is not made for pedestrians, it's made for cars. And if it's such a scary and hostile place, why would you expect people to change? That being said, the Hawk Beacon is a step in the right direction, or rather, a drive in the right direction. Ha! He made a pun. Despite all its flaws, the Hawk Beacon is looking to be more effective than having no beacon at all. Who would have guessed? And even more effective than these Plead for Your Life orange flag things. Data was collected 3 years before and 3 years after the introduction of a Hawk Beacon at 21 different intersections, and a statistical analysis found within a 95% confidence interval that intersections with a Hawk Beacon experienced a 69% reduction in crashes involving pedestrians and a 29% reduction in crashes overall. But whoa there, before any cars come vrooming it up in my comment section complaining about being mildly inconvenienced, a separate study in 2016 found an even more important metric than pedestrian deaths: motorist delays. It found that drivers on the road coming up against a Hawk Beacon compared to a signalized crossing experienced a 90% reduction in delays. Sounds pretty great, right? And those haven't been the only studies. My home state of New Jersey also did a video analysis on the effectiveness of Hawk Beacons in 3 different types of communities, that being urban, suburban, and campus. Because I guess rural doesn't have any Hawk Beacons, no pedestrians out here, maybe the Pegasus crossing for some horses. Either way, the analysis found some very easily avoidable issues. 100% of the motorists, you all right, mate? 100% of motorists stopped at the flashing red light at the New Brunswick Hawk Beacon remained stopped even when the crossing was clear of pedestrians. Wow, wish it was like that for me in Ocean City. So that whole extra phase, created solely to ensure that motorists don't have that many delays, isn't actually as useful as they intended. But either way, this ambiguity is pretty definitive proof that the design language of the Hawk Beacon is uniformly unintuitive. The study also found that the Hawk Beacon isn't that effective also for pedestrians, with 91% of the pedestrians at the Morristown Hawk Beacon in the morning and 83% in the evening chose to completely ignore the beacon. What? Sir, you are stealing the show. Thus defeating the entire purpose of the crossing being there in the first place, as if you are going to be inconveniencing pedestrians and there are easier ways to cross a street, they will probably do it, even if it's a bit more dangerous, which is why it's so important to put this research in before just throwing a new crossing in that not many people understand. The more inconvenient you make a crossing for a pedestrian, the more likely they are to just cross where they are anyway, even if it is significantly more dangerous. As a side note, I feel like the way that American society treats pedestrians, just people walking, is kind of how British society treats cyclists. They almost treat them like they don't deserve a place on the road. It's very weird. And so the report concluded that though hawk beacons are effective at increasing pedestrian safety, the lack of public awareness of them from both pedestrians and motorists severely limits the effectiveness of the crossing in general. But that leads me to ask a very obvious question. Why did they have to over-engineer it so much? The hawk beacon for sure is an improvement over the standard crosswalk, but that's setting the bar pretty darn low. It just made it more different and more difficult to understand for no reason. You see, the Pelican crossing was introduced to the UK in 1969. That's 55 years ago, and it's not like it remained dormant. They continued to iterate on it because the UK, just like the US, also wants to keep pedestrians safe and not cause unnecessary delays to motorists. We're really not as different as you might think. You see, after the Pelican crossing, the UK invented the Puffin crossing, or pedestrian, user-friendly, intelligent crossing, which acts pretty similarly to the Pelican. A pedestrian will push a button to signal they'd like to cross. However, the difference is in the intelligence. You see, now these crossings have sensors. So in the case like in the New Jersey study where pedestrians are just too exhausted, they don't feel like waiting and they cross early, if it were a Puffin crossing, the sensors would detect that there were no longer pedestrians waiting and they wouldn't even change the lights to red to delay the motorists unnecessarily. Genius! And if there are still pedestrians in the crosswalk when the Puffin is meant to change the light back to green, it includes a bit of extra time so that pedestrians can continue crossing safely, which just makes sense. Not only that, but the lights shown to motorists aren't a convoluted set of different phases. It's the red, yellow, and green that everyone's already used to, so there's no having to wait to understand it. And since then, Puffin isn't even the newest thing we have in the UK. We also have the Pedex, which is like the Puffin, but with far side signals as opposed to curbside, which I do prefer. The Toucan crossing, where two can cross at the same time, that being pedestrians and cyclists. And they've also got Pegasus crossings like the one above for those that are on horseback. There's not many of these around the UK, but they exist because they serve a purpose. Pegasus. But most likely within the next 15 years, there will be iterations to all of these. And I think that's the important point I want to bring up here. Because of the way the US government works, oftentimes it's near impossible to introduce any meaningful change to infrastructure at a federal level. So R.B. Nassy should be proud of the work that he's done. No, the hawk beacon isn't perfect, but it has had a positive impact on the communities it's been introduced to. And because there's been a clear increase in pedestrian safety, hopefully this signals, pun intended, to the US Department of Transport to invest more in pedestrian crossings. Add some sensors, maybe allow them to have a red, yellow, and green light. Heck, I don't know, take some more inspiration from other crossings around the world. Slap an eagle on it for all I care. The point is, as more and more Americans come across this crossing and become more aware of it, hopefully over time they can continue updating it to make walking in America just suck a little bit less. Maybe a lot less. Let's hope. But what are some actual solutions here? I do just want to add a note of nuance that Tucson, Arizona specifically is at least attempting to iterate on the hawk beacon, having just introduced their take on the Toucan crossing called the bike hawk, which kind of sounds like if a male body part swung both ways. But despite adding such novel concepts as traffic calming measures, wow, never heard of those before, they do work. This new crossing still suffers from the same flaws of its predecessors, being unintuitive. And considering that Arizona currently is ranked out of all 50 states as the state with the second highest pedestrian fatality rate, just behind New Mexico, and Tucson, Arizona specifically is ranked as the third deadliest metro area to walk in America, it does begin to feel like maybe just adding a few new crossings isn't really the answer to what really is a multifaceted problem. Though I found crossing streets in New Jersey to still be genuinely scary, you might be surprised to discover that New Jersey actually had the largest decrease in pedestrian deaths from 2021 to 2022, with Arizona right at the top with the highest increase in deaths. Why is that? Well, along with adding these hawk beacons, which are better than nothing, New Jersey has also added traffic calming measures. Things like, raised crosswalks, narrow streets, protected bike lanes, as well as traffic islands for larger crossings. And many New Jersey cities have adopted a Vision Zero strategy, which seeks to eliminate all traffic fatalities through better designed streets, using proven effective methods like daylighting intersections where they block off areas near an intersection so no one can park there and it increases visibility of said intersection. If you can believe it, in the city of Hoboken, New Jersey, just across the river from New York City, they have not had a single pedestrian fatality in 7 years. In 2005, the father-in-law of the then former mayor of Hoboken was hit and killed by a car while walking his dog, and they never found out who did it. The former mayor and her successor have since been relentless at improving street safety, and I would say they've actually been very effective. And since America, for some reason, hates looking at other countries who have solved these types of problems long ago with excuses like, oh, that could only work over there, that could never work over here, well, maybe more American cities can look to Hoboken in the country itself and the work that they've done over the last 20 years to make their cities safe to walk in and start implementing those changes themselves. If more American cities are willing to prioritize pedestrians the way Hoboken has and adopt their proven strategies, not just coming up with new ones that might work, well, there's no reason why we can't achieve that same success across the entire country. And hey, if this video spoke to you in any way, I encourage you to, of course, share it in your group chat or Reddit or whatever you do these days. Discord. Now, so much of the research that I had done for this video was annoyingly blocked behind US websites that don't allow for non-US traffic. Are we going to count traffic as a pun here, right? Traffic pun? No? Okay. Luckily, I was able to get around this and do all my research thanks to today's video sponsor, NordVPN. With NordVPN, all I had to do to access these websites was just click one time, change my browsing location to New York City, and now I look like every other American visitor. I guess, because I also am American. But NordVPN is also really useful if you want to expand your Netflix catalog, view what they have on Netflix in different countries. A lot of things are blocked behind content walls, which is really frustrating in today's day and age, but with NordVPN, a thing of the past. And with NordVPN's threat detection, all malicious ads, malware, and trackers are all blocked, so you can finally surf the web with peace of mind. And the best part, if you go to nordvpn.com/Evan, right now, you can get a huge discount on a 2-year plan and get 4 months extra. So, thanks NordVPN for sponsoring. Let's wrap this up. Well, I can't believe I got through this entire video on hawk beacons without making a single hawk to a pun. So, there it is. All right, I must be slipping. Anyway, YouTube seems to think you'd also like this video, and to be fair, it is a good one. So, I guess I'll see you there. Thanks for watching.